Any discussion?
Before you, if I may, Mr. Chairman, before you move off the correspondence, two I'd like to comment on for the board. One is just for the board's information and public's information as well as the second one is an extension request. Ms. Bryan wrote to the planning board regarding the treetop project by email to Diane Hines, and that was included as part of your package. And with concerns regarding the potential for truck trips to be occurring at the Quaker Avenue 9W intersection.
That's Nancy's letter?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, it was an email. And so Ms. Bryan certainly has the right to make comments to the board, but the difficulty is that the board is not yet having a public hearing on this project. So what I would do is I would encourage you to actually make those comments as part of your comments when the planning board has public hearing. The difficulty with receiving correspondence in an ongoing way like this is it doesn't really provide the applicant with an opportunity to consider and respond to these comments. But if comments are made at public hearing on a draft environmental impact statement, they have to be responded to by the applicant and addressed by the board as part of its review.
The commendable comments, by the way, I happen to agree. So that's why we're just simply deferring that.
Yeah, I think it's just acknowledging that, but I also want to make sure that people know that just because you said it in a comment now does not necessarily mean that it's part of the record or going to be addressed. So it's important to raise it at the appropriate time.
Okay, but should I make the letter a part of our public record for this hearing?
I think we haven't had a public hearing and the board hasn't authorized a public hearing on that project yet, so.
Okay.
The second letter was from Brad Schwartz to the planning board regarding the Cornwall Commons project. That was the original bulk subdivision approval, which the board will recall 6 months ago, you authorized the reissuance of preliminary approval. They had previously received conditional final approval, and as you may recall, they actually stepped back into preliminary approval, which entitles them to an unlimited number of extensions while the town considers other options that are being proposed for the property. So they have timely made a request for a 6-month extension of the preliminary approval for the bulk 10-lot subdivision for the Cornwall Commons project. That request is before you tonight.
For the record, it's unprecedented for us not to grant extensions by virtue of New York State law. Am I correct, Dominic?
That is correct, unless there's been a change in law or circumstances. But for this one, just so everyone's clear, this is the bulk subdivision. It did not allow the Cornwall Commons project to build anything other than to subdivide the property into 10 separate lots.
Shall we take action on that now? We're having to deal with it later.
Certainly.
I'll ask for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Dominic, and thank you for that update. Discussion, approval of minutes. Was everybody in receipt of the minutes from last month's meeting?
Good.
Well done.
Very well.
Anybody have any questions on them? Motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to resolutions.
Under discussions,
Yes.
could we have Steve make his comments at this time?
Could we have what, sorry?
Steve make his comments at this time?
I was going to suggest that Steve make the comments when the project itself was being, but
Oh,
that's
okay.
fine. No,
I
that's
didn't know
fine.
if we were.
Steve, would you
to vote
bring
on
that?
it.
Would you?
Yeah, I was
Go right
gonna make that at the time of the.
Oh, at the time, okay. Okay. Is that okay with you? All righty. Okay, with that, any other discussion items? Not hearing none, approval of minutes, we've had that. No, there are no resolutions tonight, correct, Dominic?
Sorry,
There are no resolutions.
no resolutions. Sorry.
Okay, with that, and there are no public hearings tonight. So we'll move on to our first project, Plotkin subdivision. Are you here? I've seen the map. Has everyone looked at the map?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
This
This is the Hawken 4-lot subdivision. My name is Nick Burnett from Peters Act and File Engineering. And this project is located on Woods Mills Road. It's identified as section 29, block 1, lot 13.221. And the project area is approximately 15.9 acres. So the site is located in the SLR, suburban low density residential district, and the minimum lot acreage is about 2 acres. The site is wooded, contains 2 small isolated wetlands in this corner over here. And this is what we were referring to with that open space easement that runs through the property there. The trestle runs along the eastern side of the property here, so that's where the railroad is. And the project consists of a 20-foot wide private road and 4 residential lots. The lots will vary in size from 2.5 acres to about 5.3 acres. And they'll all be serviced by individual wells and septic systems. So we've gone out, we've done soils testing, we did 2 perk tests and 2 deep excavation tests on each lot. And the soils are very good here. So we have details for the county road entrance, because this is a county road. Details pertaining to the private road development, as well as road control and other features of construction throughout the project. Plus.
Good night. Thank you. Pretty simple. Okay, Kristen, are you done sneezing?
Probably not, but proceed nonetheless. So the applicant's correct. This project is in the town's SLR zoning district. Obviously, there's a trail that runs through it that's open, that's owned by OSI. Single-family dwellings are permitted as of right in the zone. No variances are required for the subdivision. I think the main issue here is, given this trail runs directly through the property, that the applicant needs to coordinate with OSI and Orange County Planning. The applicant received a letter, General Municipal Law Review, received from Orange County dated April 20th, 2023. The county had a range of comments on ADA access, safety, stormwater, long-term maintenance, environmental concerns, and most recently, there was a request for actually land dedication of a portion of the property to be set aside for parking for the trail. I think that it would probably be best for the applicant to coordinate with Orange County and OSI to really to A, respond to these comments, and B, kind of nail down what is going to be required so that that can be reflected on the plans. The rest of our comments, in terms of seeker, the applicant's cover letter stated that additional environmental analysis is forthcoming, so I don't believe that any action should be taken on seeker yet. And my letter did state that you could schedule a public hearing, but I think in light of the GML review that's come in, I think it's best to probably ask the applicant to coordinate to make sure that the plans reflect what's actually going to be proposed before you schedule a public hearing.
Regarding the rail trail.
Correct.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we'll respond to the.
Okay. That it, Kristen?
Yes.
Thank you. Sean?
Sure. So 2 items. Last time, if you recall, we were discussing the roadway width for the private road as it relates to the fire code. The applicants addressed that by widening the paved roadway to 20 feet wide, which complies with the fire code. I've had a discussion with John Hand in the building department, and he agrees that it meets the fire code. Additionally, since the proposed private road will connect to Ward Mills Road, we'll have to get the review and approval by the county DPW for that connection. We had a few other technical items with regards to stormwater, sizing swales, but otherwise those could be, readily addressed by the applicant's engineer.
Okay. Board. Steve?
Just one minor comment, actually very minor comment. On your tree plan, I noticed that you listed all the tree sizes, types, but there was no reference as to the location for that measurement. I mean, typically it's done at DBH.
I believe it was not DBH, but we'll confirm that with
Okay.
the surveyor that did that.
And then maybe that should just be added to that plan, just so.
Yep.
it's referenced.
Thanks, John.
No comments.
Very well.
No comment.
Well, so the only thing that we can anticipate is that you'll be arranging a meeting with the county to deal with the. Now, is this the rail trail across the property as of right? They own that property, that,
Correct.
okay, so you guys will just have to kind of work that through with the county. And I think that once that, we have an understanding of that, we can move forward with a public hearing or whatever else has to be done. Okay?
Yep.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, that was easy. We're not gonna schedule it until we hear back from the county. Thank you. 2 girls, 1 boy holding company. Are we here? We are. No, we aren't. We are not here.
I'll call them later, see if they're running late.
Yeah, I think that maybe they're running late, but we'll put a hold on that one. Okay. Professor has come for the purpose of addressing the public hearing, the traffic study. So perhaps for the record, we should have that for the edification of the planning board. And since you came all the way over here, I think it would be helpful for the board to hear. Kristen and Sean will defer your comments until they're here to hear them, obviously. But I think for the edification of the board, the traffic study information would be helpful. Because we need your opinion on the prospects of the planning board waiving the parking percentage ratio. And Dominic, would we be considering that tonight, since they will be going directly to the zoning board of appeals?
Yeah, and so one of the issues that has been identified from the outset regarding this application is the need for certain variances.
Right.
They need an area variance, but they also need a variance regarding parking. The question is then how much of a variance do they need for parking? And so the board has some input into that amount because the code provisions provide 2 things. One, the board gets to agree to a certain amount of overlap between various uses that are proposed within the hotel. So the hotel being one and the restaurant being the other use. And so the question is, how much of a credit do you get for the overlap between those uses in terms of parking demand, rather than just requiring the full number of parking spaces for the hotel and the full number of parking spaces for the restaurant, because it's certainly conceivable that people that are staying at the hotel will also stay or rather eat at the restaurant. That's one component. The second component will be the town code does provide for up to a 30% waiver of on-site parking in light of the fact that there is parking available on Main Street. And so if the board, as part of its review of this application, can give guidance as to what ultimately may be a determination regarding those.
And that guidance would be to the zoning board.
Well, guidance to the applicant and to the zoning board, really,
Okay.
because then it gives the applicant the ability to say, this is what the planning board feedback we received is, and as a result, we're now applying for a variance of X, whatever X may be, rather than Y.
Which is why we have the eminent Dr. Phil Greeley to tell us all about the traffic study. Perfect.
Yes.
So we brought it right back to you.
With the lead in. Philip Greeley, Colliers Engineering and Design. We reviewed the traffic and parking study that Tim Miller Associates prepared for the applicant. They looked at existing and future traffic conditions based on projections per the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They looked at peak hours, both weekday and Saturday. From a traffic standpoint, we find that their projections are reasonable. They looked at both the hotel and actually 2 different categories of restaurants, a high-quality restaurant or more of a more casual. So they did look at both categories in terms of what the traffic generation would be and how it would function. We do have some comments on site plan and circulation, but I think tonight we're just focusing on the traffic and the parking, because the parking is really kind of the key component here. Their parking portion of the study looked at parking over the course of the day. So by hour, they looked at the hotel use and 2 different restaurant categories. again, based on ITE, the Institute of Transportation Engineers, parking generation and distribution figures. Their study identified that during certain times of the day, primarily in the evening on both the weekday, I believe on a Friday evening and Saturday evening, they would exceed the number of spaces that would be provided on site. Also in the midday on a Saturday for a short period of time, a couple of spaces over. The most significant number of shortfall of spaces was on Saturday evening after 6 o'clock, where there was a shortfall projected of about 20 spaces. Now, at that time, there are spaces available along Main Street that could be utilized. And that kind of leads into the question of the shared parking, what we call it. So the data indicates that up to about a 25% credit for a hotel with the restaurant makes sense in terms of what you would allow for a credit. In fact, for larger size hotels, the restaurants are absorbed into the parking ratios. But again, we're talking about a smaller type of hotel, and that would be the percentage that would be reasonable. So the applicant study did provide, the variations and show where the time of day where the shortfall would occur. And again, it really is really off peak because the hotel peaks in the evening. So I think those are the main findings of what we commented on. The rest of it was site plan related and signing and access and loading areas and so on and so forth. So be happy to answer any questions.
And for the purpose of this particular review, we're just looking at the consideration of the planning board to afford a note saying that we would move forward with or would consider the waiver question. So we're really directing towards specifically what Dr. Lee was just referring to in terms of the impact on the parking. So I'll start this way since Mary Beth, you look like you're.
I do have a question. So when you did your analysis, you're looking at the overlay for hotel use and restaurant use. Because I'm also thinking that overage would be onto Main Street, and I'm just thinking 2-hour parking, which is, I believe, currently policy on Main Street. So I was just wondering, is that also included in your analysis?
So our review of their study, of the Tim Miller study, focused on the time of day and where the shortfall would be on the site. So in terms of the usage on street, that would come into play. So the overnight parking peak, they would be able to accommodate it on site. Okay. So it's really when the restaurant is in that evening time period, so the on-street parking and the typical duration of the restaurant would kind of fall in line with that. So I think that would be fine.
I usually guess the bulk of that parking issue would be Saturday nights. Stores, many of the stores are closed along.
Correct.
Right, I did understand that, but I was just
Yep, in terms of the
considering
time
that time
restriction.
frame with, that I believe is currently, as I said,
Correct.
the policy. So how was that included in your review?
In terms of they identified that, and that, I think falls in line with their conclusion, so we're okay with that.
Thank you. Bill?
No, I appreciate his explanation, and I have a better understanding of the peak time, et cetera, so I feel comfortable.
Good, that's the way. Good, thank you.
I had a question with the peak times. How about conferences during the week?
So in terms of the hotel itself, if you look at the distributions in their report, in the middle of the day, there are some peak times there, but again, the restaurant peaks don't align with that. So that the real peak occurs in the evening where you have full occupancy of the hotel. I think in terms of the demand for a small get-together at the hotel, I don't think they have a large conference space proposed.
Now, isn't the premise for most hotels more like a 70% occupancy on a full-time basis? And this is based on 100%
Well,
occupancy?
they look at occupied rooms.
Right,
is-
okay.
So, I think in terms of, for this size hotel, I think the occupancy number would be higher.
Mhm.
For a larger hotel, you start running into ranges like that, but here, they've assumed full occupancy, and I think that's more reasonable for this size
That's a good,
hotel.
good thing to base the numbers on anyway, if nothing else. Okay, thank you. Any more?
Does their traffic study incorporate seating from the rooftop?
So in terms of their traffic projections, what they've identified for the rooftop bar and rooftop facilities, they said that that's really a component of the hotel use. And looking at the distribution, when that peaks, the hotel wouldn't be peaking yet. So in terms of the parking conditions, it covers it. From a traffic standpoint, it's kind of rolled into the generation rates because they used full generation for the hotel, full generation for the restaurant without any credit. And that credit, they're saying, would equate to the use of the rooftop area. You know, if you look at it from the standpoint of the typical credit that you would get for that, I think it's reasonable. For the number, the number of seats and everything we accounted for.
Steve?
No.
Okay, I guess I just ask you to weigh in on, just on the question of the parking ratio. Do you have any comments on it? Just that. We can do the rest later, but it's just for the, again, the identification of the board.
Certainly, so, well, and I point out that there are some discrepancies in the numbers that are used between the site plan and the parking study itself. I think overall, the conclusion of the parking study, I think, is reasonable. And that is that the peak times from the downtown businesses and the overage at the hotel do not coincide, so that when the hotel is experiencing its peaks, the businesses would not be experiencing their peaks, there'd be ample parking available on the street. And I think that that's what Phil agreed with that premise, and I think that that's kind of the overarching premise, whether the numbers are exact. We can talk about with the applicant when they are here, but I think I agree with the overarching conclusion.
Charlie, do you want to weigh in on that at all?
Nothing other than I agree with both their analyses.
Okay, well, with that, Dominic, should the board discuss a letter, or should we wait and defer until?
I mean, if you're comfortable doing that now, then that certainly would be fine, but typically you do have an applicant present when discussing substantive matters regarding an applicant. I did reach out and ping Mr. Lansky, their representative, and I have not heard back.
Okay, if we do hear back, we will consider it. If not, we won't this time, wait till next time. Is that fair? Fair, sir. Okay, for that. And Phil, I know that you have a minor conflict with this, so you may even, you look like, Don, you know,
I have to
looking
run
from,
to another meeting.
yes, and looking at you on that, you look a little like John Chaney, but that's, no, that's through the camera. You're excused, and thank you. You did a really good job with that
The
analysis.
last meeting was that I was told I reminded the chairman of Bruce Gossage. I said, I wish I could pitch that.
Well, the mustache is kind of wolfish.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, this is the Route 32, Yo.
John, yes. Hi,
John.
how are you?
So that made it so much easier.
That's it?
Yes.
So we were here in December, and we had to get a variance and some additional information for engineering of the existing septic system, and I believe we've done that. So, small addition, small two-story addition to a existing structure on Route 32, commercial, residential, in the highway commercial district.
Okay. With that, Kristen?
Sure, so this site is in the highway commercial district. It's a very minor 481 square foot addition to a building. The applicant received a variance to allow the residential use, where residential uses are only permitted on upper floors in this district. They're allowed to continue to expand this residential usage on the ground floor. So they did receive their variance. We had some minor comments on the site plan, basically just related to walkway and dumpster detail, lighting, landscaping. But they're pretty minor site plan issues. This application is unlisted under seeker. We coordinated the EAF with the applicant in December. I think the last two items outstanding with respect to seeker are water and sewer and drainage for Sean to weigh in on.
Very good. Thank you. Sean?
Sure. So with regards to the septic, or sewer, the applicant had an engineer prepare a letter which confirmed that despite the addition, the existing septic system with some modifications that were done to the building department will allow the existing on-site septic to provide enough capacity for the addition. One additional comment we had was with regards to ADA access and asking the applicant to provide some topography of the existing conditions to ensure ADA access is made available at the site to get into the retail space. That's all I had at this time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Steve?
Yes, at this point, in reviewing the site plan, based on your existing condition plan where you referenced the surveyor who did the work, I'm requesting a proposal that on all site plans that do show boundary line information, we would require a seal and signature of the actual land surveyor who prepared the plan, and/or a statement of consent that their plan is being used for the site plan purposes. This will provide two main things. One, it will ensure that the plan that we're reviewing is relative and up to date. And secondly, and probably more importantly, based on my profession, is it will make the surveyor, the licensed surveyor who prepared the original survey map, aware that his or her survey is being used for the site plan. I can tell you from personal experiences that I've had my work used for site plans. I had no idea that was being presented. And that's the reason for this request.
Do you have an issue with that, or are you able to
I
provide
don't think so. I think the surveyor, she knows when we retained her to do that, that was for that purpose. So
Yeah, I'm sure
that could be provided fairly quickly, I would think.
Okay, well, that's good. And I think that after we go through our projects, then we should consider that as a policy on the part of the board for all projects.
And Mr. Chairman, I can assist with that by making that comment on, projects that it pertains to.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. John?
No comments.
Bill?
No comments.
Dominic, is there any action
Well, as the gentleman explained, they did receive variances that they needed from the zoning board of appeals. The zoning board, as part of its process, must hold a public hearing on applications that are before it. This project is a site plan amendment, and for site plans, the planning board has the ability to waive public hearings on projects. So I don't know if sometimes Gary weighs in and tells you how the ZBA hearing went.
There was absolutely no public at the hearing.
So, given that, one step that the board may wish to take is whether or not you'd like to waive a public hearing on this application.
Well, from all we've heard, there doesn't seem to be a reason to slow anything down. We should encourage the movement of the project. With that, I'll ask for a motion to waive public hearing.
So moved.
Second, first and a second. Okay, we have both. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Okay.
And as far as that, I think that there are some plan adjustments that need to be made in light of comments that have been made tonight. But the board may wish to authorize drafts of things drafts of perhaps a negative declaration and a conditional approval resolution for the board's consideration if and when the applicant makes their submission. If they submit for the June meeting, you may want to have those materials ready for that meeting.
And would I may ask for a motion to authorize those, Kristen and Dominic, to prepare said resolutions?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
There you go. All in favor? There you go. Okay. So you're going to do the, as directed and take care of the update on this?
Sure.
Okay, we're agreeing.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the vet rep theater. Are we here? Yes, we are. You can sit.
What's that?
You can sit down if you like.
You know what, I don't mind standing.
Okay.
Sitting a lot today, so. Well, we're happy to be back before the board, you know, to remind the board, this is, 1 Angola Road, it's at the intersection of Angola and Continental Avenue. We're proposing that the building be used as a theater. As you know, we're before the town board, or partially, and they're moving along with what would seem to be an approval to extend the zone that surrounds this area of GC to include this property.
For your information, we've been updated on that, and we do know that the town board has,
So based on the last meeting, we've made revisions to the plans. We identified the parking requirements and dimensioned it, also road access into the site. We've increased the parking area to the east of the building, more closer to Continental Avenue to satisfy the parking requirements. In addition to that, we added a landscaping buffer along the two sides to help keep the project buffered from the neighbors and for whatever reason, for visual or for sound. And we also worked on contacting the fire department through John Hand to get their comments. We haven't received anything yet from the fire inspector. We also contacted the Village of Cornwall Water Department. Mike Trainer did get back to us and asked for additional comments or he had questions that we need to respond to. Those questions involve the type of building, what would the water be used for if it is for sprinkler system. He is asking for preliminary calculations to show that the water, what would be needed and can their water supply that. But initially, there were no objections to tapping into the Village of Cornwall water system.
very good. Okay, with that, Kristen?
So this, I was at the village board meeting, excuse me, the town board meeting, where am I? Town board meeting, they did authorize the preparation of a local law with respect to the zoning to accommodate this particular use on this site. The plans have been revised, as the applicant's architect did say that they're expanded the parking on the site and expanded some landscaping on the site. We had some minor comments on the plans, but most of our previous comments were responded to. We received a letter from Orange County Planning Department dated March the 30th, 4 advisory comments. I think that the applicant should review those and respond to them. I personally agree there was a recommendation with respect to incorporation of complete streets into this site. I think that the applicant may want to look into doing that. Of course, Angola Road is a county road, so the applicant can't do anything there without authorization from the county. So they're going to need to have a conversation with County Highway Department before they can propose crosswalks on the county's road. This is a type 1 action because of the local law that's required that requires a coordinated review. The applicant prepared an EAF, which we had some minor comments on. They've provided the revisions. So tonight, the planning board can declare their intent to be lead agency, and we will circulate that notice to all of the involved agencies.
Thank you, Kristen. Sean?
Sure. So with regards to access, the applicants updated the plans to include modifications to the Angola Road entrance, as well as provide an additional access to Continental Road. So with that, the Angola Road entrance has very poor sight distance and requires review and approval by Orange County DPW. So one suggestion I had to the applicant's representative on the phone last week was, did you consider only access to Continental Road? And I believe Mr. Mako's office will be looking into that, which, would increase the safety and sight distance for that access. With that said, we will need review and acceptance by the town's highway superintendent for that access. Additionally, if the Angola Road access was to remain, we will need acceptance by the county. I had some minor comments with regards to the lighting plan that was proposed, as well as the town road specifications for the access to Continental Road. And other than that, really no comments. I would have no objection to the board circulating for lead agency, but have one minor comment and update needed for the EAF before that can be circulated.
Okay, that's fine. You can provide the applicant with your comments.
I will.
Okay. With that, Steve?
No comments.
Bill?
No comment.
No comments. The best we can do to help facilitate or move along is to just simply acknowledge lead agency status. I'll take a motion.
So, second.
All in favor?
All right.
Okay, we are now lead agency, or requesting it anyway.
Circulating.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we're good.
I have one request. Can I just get the consultant's comments?
Yes, of course.
And also, we didn't get the 239 responses back, so we would definitely like to have that so we can.
They will be provided.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
You
Thank
too,
very much.
Thank you.
I don't want to hold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can email them to you tomorrow.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Cornwall Social. That's a whole bunch.
I don't know. Okay, I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Justin. So Justin, so today, we're rolling deep today. We're joined with, by Justin Dates from Colliers, who's been our consistent advisor on the engineering side. Our newly retained counsel, John Capello from JG, in partnership with Michelle Babcock, who isn't able to attend tonight, and Stark Hip from Creighton Manning on traffic. And I just wanted to say thank you for continuing to listen. And we really want to just express that Justin will give you all the details, but the spirit of how we approach the public comments was really, we tried very much to listen to what everyone said. We had people over to our homes. We went over to other people's homes. We reached out to people that wanted to have constructive conversations, and really tried to listen to what they were saying and incorporate it in what we're presenting tonight. So I just wanted to express the spirit with which we approach this exercise. And then with that, I'll turn it over to Justin for the details.
On that, if everyone is in, if you received the responses to the public comments? Or you did? Yes. Yeah, it was very well done. Okay. Great.
Mr. Chairman, Justin Dates with Colliers Engineering and Design. So in coordination with Liz's presentation, the updated application materials that you received were put together in conjunction with the March 6th public hearing. So the applicant and design team went through all of those comments and looked to make modifications to the scope of the project. So first one would be, there was quite a bit of comment and feedback regarding the initial proposal of a wastewater treatment plant on the site to handle the sewer treatment for the project. That's been removed from the proposal. We have proposed to do on-site holding tanks and a pump out schedule, which we've outlined on the plans. We would look to have the tanks pumped out every 2 days. So also in accordance with the DEC standards, we have additional capacity. They need double the capacity. So we have 4 days of capacity. We look to get it pumped out every 2 days. And then we also have another day of capacity in conjunction with having 1 day for anything above a high level alarm. So there's alarms on these tanks as well, in case power goes out or things like that, or it hits the peak of the storage. It's gonna set off an alarm, and then there's another day of storage there, basically, in case it's on middle of the night or things of that nature. So there's basically
Similar or the same as the system proposed, accepted for the
pickleball.
With the
Yes.
exception that the tanks are slightly larger. Yes.
That's correct. Yeah. So same level of protection per se is put into place for this proposal as well. Building 5 previously had a 60-seat restaurant. We have removed that from the application at this time. That building will just be used. The applicant would like to finish renovating the exterior of that, and also just on the interior provide for an employee bathroom in that facility. Building 6 is the existing residential structure that's on site. It has been sitting for some time. They'd like to continue to just be able to renovate the exterior and interior of that, and it will not be used at this time of the current application. Hours of operation were slightly adjusted. Monday through Thursday was previously till 9 p.m. We've pulled that back to 8 p.m. Sunday was proposed to open at 10. They moved that out to 11 a.m. again on Sundays. The Shore Drive access, that was one of the other topics, raised quite a bit by the public. With what's been removed from the project, we are still using Shore Drive as the access to the facilities. As Liz mentioned, Starkip from Creighton Manning did do a traffic letter, which looked at the trip generation from the pickleball project, as that was approved to what we are proposing. And in the conditions, we are less than the pickleball, with the exception of utilizing that courtyard, right? We had the 100 seat courtyard area. So with that, what the applicant is proposing is to restrict it to only being utilized 12 times a year. And basically, the use of that would also require bringing in porta potties, so that none of that flow contributes to the storage tanks. All right. And also with the use of the courtyard, any music or is going on in there would be done by sundown, is part of the proposal for continued use of that. Couple of small things. There was a screen fence along the northern side of the property for the adjacent neighbor. We did extend that a little bit further to the west, and we also added it along the eastern side of the property. So there's a 6-foot screen fence that goes along the majority of that eastern property line now as well. We did have landscaping as screening and whatnot, but in talking with the neighbor, that's something that they've added to the project. The other thing, we just the end of last week, the DOH did approve the use of the on-site well for water service to the facility. So that we did provide that letter. We could provide, the full package of authorized documents as part of the submission to the board. Yeah, so I mean, with those modifications and, there's other responses to other pieces I can go into, more if the board would like, but, we would like to pursue an approval for the project at this time with the modifications that we just spoke about.
And the modifications constitute basically downsizing the project, I assume.
That's correct. Those items were removed from the proposal. So yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Kristen?
Thank you. The applicant responded to all of the comments that we had, not only our comments from the last time this applicant was here, but also the comments from a previous month where they had kind of been, this is a full submittal package, so it addresses comments even from our previous review letters with respect to landscaping and lighting and hours of operation, things like of that nature. We reviewed all of the responses to the public hearing comments. I found them to be comprehensive, responding to all of the comments that were received. The one comment that I did have is that the traffic study, one of the recommendations is to install a walkway and bicycle accommodation on the site. We obviously acknowledge that there is a section of this property right between the actual proposed buildings and Shore Drive that is not owned by the applicant. But I think that given it is a recommendation of their own traffic study, they're going to need to address pedestrian bicycle accommodations in some form or fashion. In terms of process for this application, this is a type 1 action. The notice of intent for lead agency was circulated in March of 2022. We're just basically waiting for the utilities to be tightened up and ready to go before any seeker action can be taken.
Thank you, Kristen. Sean?
Sure. So obviously the wastewater was one of the bigger components that was brought up at the public hearing. I reviewed the sizing of that as compared to the guidance that New York State DEC has with their intermediate wastewater standards. The sizing appears to be consistent or exceeding that guidance. And in addition, the applicant has reserved space for a future pump station to be able to connect to the existing town infrastructure in Beaver Dam Lake that ultimately is tributary to the town of New Windsor sewer treatment plant when available capacity is received in winter. I had some minor comments with regards to the installation of the tanks for the wastewater, as well as making sure that the alarm that Mr. Gates had discussed is both visible and has an audio alarm so that it can be heard in the event of high capacity. We had some comments with regards to the SWIP that I will forward to the applicant's engineer, but otherwise the response adequately addressed our previous comments with regards to the application.
Great. Thank you, Sean. Comments to the board. Steve?
Just one comment, or actually suggestion. You had mentioned that with the storage tanks, you would be pumping out every 2 days, correct? As a suggestion, on the plan, though, you do show parking in front of those storage tanks. Maybe that space should be left as a no parking zone to ensure access to the storage.
I mean, they're kind of, that back area, kind of vision maybe where employees would be parking in that area, so we could, or the applicant could just make sure that that area is clear. I don't know if it's there to actually remove spaces from that area. I think they could be managed.
With the
to not be
spaces in
the way.
place.
Yeah. I think obviously they'd want the timing of that pump out to be not when maybe people are
Right.
using the facility. Yeah, so it'd be off peak hours, I would assume. That fact, if you, that's something, maybe we could add that to the plan, note, because we did have a series of sewer notes on the plan about the hauling and whatnot.
And that, okay.
We could add that as another note, off peak pump hours, if that's okay with you.
Oh, no, that's fine. I offered it on as a suggestion only so that there would be guaranteed access to get to the tanks there at the time.
So perhaps one thing to consider might be labeling them as employee parking spaces. And that way you can control your employees and tell them it's time to move your vehicles, rather than having guests that might otherwise park there.
Steve, you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
No comments.
I just had a question on portable toilets. How often are you going to sanitize those?
Those will be.
And how many would there be?
Those will be brought in just for use of the courtyard area. So we have
That's 12 times a year,
we have proposed a maximum of 12 times per year, that those will be brought in for the event or the use of that.
And then how do you host with them? They're gone.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, it was all.
Just one question. Can you describe for identification the tanks themselves, you know? They're how they're placed, how high are they, and those sorts of things, just so we could visualize it a little bit better.
Yeah, so they're basically like a septic tank. So they're below grade, and our, as depicted on the plans, we had a series of sewer pipes and services that collect from the buildings and take it all the way to the back where the storage tanks are. And they would be in series essentially, so there are two right next to each other, they'd be piped together. We sized them in accordance with, our estimated daily flow. So the facilities that we have proposed for use, it's 1,399 gallons a day that they would produce. So we have, I think it's just over 7,000 gallons per day available in these two storage tanks because we have 2 days of storage times 2, part of the DEC requirements, that's 4 days. And then the extra day is that relief at the alarm high level setting.
Sure.
So
Is there any concern as far as, is there any flow of stormwater, et cetera, that might pass this particular area? That there might be some mixing? And I'm just trying to, thinking about some of the comments from the public.
yeah, I could show you on the plan where it is. You
That's
think that'd be
fine.
helpful?
Sure.
Okay. So it's strictly for the sanitary sewer. It's not a combined system by any
No, I
means.
understand.
It's
So
strictly-
would there be any mixing just with water flow?
No.
Okay, so that would really make sense.
We're just thinking about all this rain. That's
I'll just dealt with the rain. There's a lot of rain. Is there any issue?
So.
You're right.
So this is 94 Shore.
Correct.
So this is that back building on the north side, building 5. So they are just off the building in this small grass area.
Okay.
And you can see the series of piping that is strictly for sanitary from the facilities to get to the storage tanks.
Okay.
So there's minor, it's a small grass area that would be, over top, they'd be covered, you wouldn't be unsightly or anything.
And what sort of top, or it would be just a pipe coming out that you would?
Yeah, there would be probably like a almost like a manhole.
A manhole cover?
Yes, so
Okay.
they can remove that and.
Okay. All right, thank you. I just wanted that clarification. Just sure.
No better member of our board to ask for clarification than our Corps of Engineers. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mary Beth?
I just wanted to clarify the screening that would be, that's been extended for the neighbor.
Yeah.
You said that was, I know it was also one of our consultants' comments. That is going to be a typical like metal with a mesh through it.
No, actually what we did was, so on the northern side, we had a 6-foot vinyl screen fence,
Right, I remember that.
solid. We've actually changed that out. It's gonna be a 6-foot tall wood, kind of like horizontal slat, but would be a solid screen. Just felt that aesthetically it fit in more with what the applicant was looking for, and just a little more sturdy too from the vinyl. So that was, we applied that to where it was previously proposed, and then also wrapped it around the north side of building 5, basically. And then that same application is going down pretty much the full extent of the eastern property line. And we do also have landscaping proposed all along that eastern property line as well as to the north. There's evergreen screening and some canopy trees along that too.
Additional.
Correct, yep. So vegetative and structural type of screening.
And you also stated, of course, that it's going to be off of shore.
Correct.
So I just wanted to make sure for any use of 94 future plans or considered at this time, shore is the primary entrance and exit.
Yes, so we have had that discussions with the applicant and the team, and the proposal there would be, they want to see ultimately the full use of the project site. It's been pared down like we talked about, but if that restaurant were to come back online, we would also at that time look to have it access out to 94.
Okay.
Correct, so that would be
As a
what we
matter of
propose
fact,
as an
it'd be
amended.
Phase 2, if there were to be a phase 2 of the project, would incorporate the access for Route 94 to the site.
Correct, and that would be, coming back to this board to gain approval of those other.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, but just so for my clarification, like any potential phase 2 of this project would actually be tied to New Windsor accepting sewer for the proposal, right? Or is it, I mean, at this point, the point that I'm driving at is like, I mean, this is not a 2-phase project at this point. Like, I think previously it was, the project's been scaled down.
Correct.
And so anything that happens here in future would require a separate application and review at that time, regardless of how you're dealing with sewer or other issues or other things at that point.
I mean, this is, as you know, this is my first time doing this and I've learned a lot. But what we would hope to do is, seek access to 94 as soon as we can, like start that process. But, we just want to get shovels in the ground. And I don't think based on the work of Great Learning, and using pickleball as a precedent, it doesn't seem like, we necessarily need access for 94 for the scope of the project but I mean, just as business people, 94 seems like the better access point, and I would love to start working on that. I just have been told all along that shore was the better access point, so that was what we pursued. But now in listening to the feedback, we want to do 94, they want us to do 94. We would love to just start working on getting that access, but I don't want to wait 6-9 months before we have that lined up, so.
Well,
Yeah, I would just, I think to get to meld what Dominic is saying, it either will be an application for an expansion of the use to include the sewer, or potentially just an application saying, now we want to use 94 and we're amending it. So, but it will be a new application either for an amendment or an expansion.
Well, that goes exactly to the chairman's point, which was whether or not that conversion or change in access to the site, from Shore Road to 94 was going to be tied to like some kind of future phase. So I think that clarification was very helpful from you both. So thank you.
Good. Yes. My only question related to that would be, if you were incorporating a 60-seat restaurant into this as an access to 94, does the sewer disposal system accommodate that?
We can't.
Okay, so it would be, so basically back to Dominant's point. Okay, but it's kind of a moot point for what we're discussing here. So I don't want to make it more complicated than it needs to be. I had 2 points and that was one of them, and that's covered. The other point was we did receive a request for an additional public hearing. However, I have concerns about that prospect, and Dominic, I think this constitutes, which is why I asked you before, if this constitutes a downsizing of the project. And you responded, it is, obviously is a downsizing of the project. With that in mind, Dominic, would you address that?
Yeah, so not only is it a downsizing of the project, but it's, to the applicant's credit, it was in response to comments that were made at the public hearing. As Ms. Dunn explained to the board, they listened to the public comments, they've done their best, in their words, to address those comments and make adjustments to the plans. That being said, though, as a result of the downsizing of the project, that there were several emails that were sent to the building department last week requesting a second public hearing. The difficulty with that is that the code simply doesn't provide the planning board with the authority or discretion to require a second public hearing on a project. In some circumstances, when there's been a completely different proposal, like that's being made, substantially different proposal where, like, someone's proposing to put in, a taco truck, and then is then later on looking to do like a quick check or is like a gas station or something along those lines, like, under the same application, that could, obviously be treated as a different kind of proposal. This is quite fairly a reduction in the proposal that was before you previously, same type of use. And the board quite simply doesn't have the legal authority to require the applicant to go through the second public hearing.
Okay, with that, I acknowledge, I happen to agree on principle as well. Having been on the board for several decades, we've never followed a public hearing with a second public hearing. So be it that it's against state law, I think that's a good reason not to do it. And secondly, I think that it's inappropriate since we have never done it before, under much more dire circumstances. So in response, on the record, I'll ask for the board for a consent that we're agreeing that we would not hold a second public hearing.
Move the consent.
Okay, with that, thank you. Okay, with that, how we can move the project forward would be to ask the board for consent to prepare a resolution.
Yeah, I think it's at the point now where if the board is satisfied that the consultants could prepare a negative declaration.
I'm sorry, Don?
If the board is satisfied, then the applicants, the consultants could prepare a negative declaration and a draft resolution of conditional approval for the board to consider at your next month's meeting.
Okay, with that, and with the consent of the board, I'll ask for a motion to ask Chris to prepare a neg deck.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
There you go. And I'll ask for another motion to approve a conditional approval with conditions. Dominic, whatever.
We would draft a resolution of conditional approval for the
Okay.
board's consideration.
Okay, for next month?
For next month.
Okay,
So moved.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
There you go. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I don't know what.
I'll draw.
Say?
I'll draw.
What? Okay, with that, do you have any other business at hand? Any other questions, issues, board members going around?
Move that we adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks, Bruce.
What do you think, Ralph?
I appreciate to see